A wife struggles as her husband buys over $300,000 worth of sports cards and racks up over $100,000 in credit card debt in the process. But this story is not unique, and it leads to the question, are breaking and sports cards addictive? And if so, do we need to do something about it? Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to another episode of Cards on the Table. Teapot Doug. Doug, what do you got right there? You got a card?
Yeah.
You got a slab?
Yeah.
It
looks familiar.
Could you not keep yourself away from this, Doug? Are you
Here's
addicted, perhaps, to this slab?
People will keep asking me if the Arena Club cards are digital or real, so I decided to redeem that one because I wanted to have that one on display. So
this is really cool.
That's from a couple of weeks ago.
This
it's the
is really
Montana
cool.
Rice Dual Auto. Yeah.
This is really cool. I know, Doug, your house, and I know your house, Teapot, look a bit like mine, which is awesome cards stacked up. and wall displays and boxes and cards absolutely everywhere. Now, I consider this to be a joy. I love having cards all around me at all times. My wife doesn't always agree with this, as she's constantly telling me to clean them up. But I love my cards, and I love having them near, and I love having them displayed, and I love being able to look at them and show them off, just like this one. And I know you've got a card room in your house, and you've got awesome card displays as well. But there seems to be maybe kind of a fine line between collecting and building these big collections of cards and stepping over this line into maybe addiction.
Yep.
At what point do you get addicted by the hobby, by the chase of cards, or by breaking? Yep. And this has come back into the hobby news cycle recently, and it was kind of spurred on a couple of weeks ago. A woman went on Reddit and she posted a big post on Reddit about asking for help with her husband's card addiction. And she used the word addiction. And she said that he had bought over $300,000 worth of sports cards, not in the family's best financial interests. She said that he has over $100,000 in credit card debt. So clearly, maybe overspending his limits here a bit. And she was asking for the community's help in terms of how she could sell his collection, liquidate his collection to get money back out of this and end this for her husband and hopefully get that credit card debt paid down. This story is not unique. I feel like we've seen more stories pop up recently on social media, on Reddit, on message boards of people who have overspent. Often you see it associated with breaking. And when you hear the criticism that people have of breaking, one thing that people say is that, look, it can lead to certain people, certain personalities kind of getting addicted to it, right? And maybe they're overspending. Maybe they're in it too deep and they can get in it too much. It brings up a big question, right? Like it is, can sports cards be addictive? Can breaking be addictive? What should be done about it? If so, should anything be done about it? Who has responsibility for doing things about it? Or is this a situation where people just need to take more responsibility on their own? Somewhat of a delicate topic. There is some support groups that are starting to emerge. I'm going to talk about those as we go. But Teapot, let me start with you on this topic. When you hear a story like this wife's story, how do you feel about this whole thing?
I mean, I feel for them. The one piece that's missing from this is we don't know what that gentleman's annual income is, what his net worth is. If he's got a 7-figure annual income and an 8-figure net worth, having $100,000 in credit card debt isn't that much. If he's making $50,000 a year and has no savings and just depleted it all on cards, that's a huge problem. Like, that's a really big problem. In either case, it sounds like his wife's not okay with it, and that's a big deal. It's a really important thing. I honestly respect her for trying to go out and seek some advice, and sometimes you don't know where to go other than just a Reddit forum or something. You're trying to figure out, what do I do here? She's sticking it out with him, trying to figure out how to do this. It sounds like he's saying he can't liquidate his whole collection. He certainly could. There are ways to do that. In fact, Ty Wilson from Chasing Cardboard recently bought out a collection where the story was very similar, and it does seem like the guy that he bought the collection out from did have a higher personal net worth, had some collectible cars and other things, but he just said, I got in a little over my head. I got a little carried away by the rush of ripping product myself and buying into breaks and things along those lines. So I think you have to be careful. What I'll say about this is, like, some people would just say certain things, whether it's breaking or whatever, should be banned. I'm not a fan of that. I think legalized gambling is okay. And they give you all the advertisements and whatever before they, do different things online or in a casino where they tell you, like, hey, if you need help, do XYZ. DraftKings has all their disclaimers. Cigarettes can be highly addictive. They have the Surgeon General warning on them. Alcohol, we went through prohibition for years in this country, and all it did was lead to an underground movement. So there's ways to regulate things, put age restrictions and limitations in place, and then just create really good support groups and educational, things in that regard. And I think that's what needs to be done here. This should be a hobby. It shouldn't be something that's potentially destroying your life and your families along the way.
Do we need a Surgeon General warning that pops up every time you go into a live break, or when you're about to, place your bid on one of the online auction websites? Doug, does a warning need to pop up making sure that you understand that bidding on a sports card can be addictive?
May not be the worst idea. Obviously I feel bad for this situation. Feel bad for the guy. Most likely he was a pack or two away from hitting that life-changing card. Now he's
could have been if he just kept going, right?
Jokes aside, we could fill a whole hour's podcast worth of conversation about this. And if that's, if sports cards are your vice, there's a lot of ways in this hobby to scratch that itch and do it pretty instantly. So I can understand that, right? And I'm a gambler myself. I love it. I'm wearing a gambling shirt right now, but I usually keep that to sports betting rather. And you mentioned DraftKings. There's a ton of disclaimers anytime you were to go place a bet.
Yeah.
First of all, you can set daily limits on yourself so that you don't overspend if you have a certain amount that, a threshold that you can lose. But they have a ton of resources, a ton of tools on their website. They have 10 principles for, like responsible sports betting. Maybe we should bring a little bit of awareness to the hobby. It wouldn't be the worst thing ever. I don't necessarily think there needs to be regulations put in place. It's not that same level, but awareness isn't bad.
I think awareness typically does more than regulation.
Sure.
That's my opinion about it.
Yeah, I am under the mindset when it comes to most things in life that regulation, restricting people from things is not the answer, and often is ineffective. You mentioned prohibition, right? I mean, it's often ineffective to restrict people from the things that they really love and want to do. I do think education is important. I do think telling people, hey, like, let's be careful here with what we're doing is important. I would be supportive of there being a little bit of, language support around some of these breaking platforms in particular. I mean, I think that people have to be aware of their own tendencies, and people get addicted to all kinds of different things. They take all kinds of different things far. Any type of vice type thing, people can get a little compulsive with it, or a little addicted to it, or even non-vice type things. I mean, people become addictive eaters, or they just become addicted to work. Often, my wife tells me I'm addicted to work. You can get like really into things, and sometimes, especially when it's costing you money, and your credit card is plugged into a breaking platform, an online, auction, you got to be a little careful with it for sure. One key thing I think is really important for everybody to understand, and I think a responsibility for us to continue to repeat it, for even us to talk about it on our breaking streams. Breaking and sports cards in general, opening boxes, ripping packs, this is entertainment. It is entertainment, and you should only spend the dollars that you are going to spend on entertainment when you're doing those activities. Now, there is an investment element, obviously, to sports cards as well. We talk about that a lot, but that's buying singles. That's buying the cards of the goats and the guys who you feel like, I'm parking some money here because I think this rare, iconic, highly graded card is going to have a lot of value in 20 or 30 years. That's different. Breaking, ripping boxes, opening packs, that's the type of thing that tends to, be somewhat compulsive and can become addicting. Entertainment, right? And I think that people really have to understand, like, that is my entertainment budget. the money that I would spend to go to a sporting event, the money I would spend to go to a concert, the money I would spend to go to the movies, if I would rather spend that on a break tonight while I sit on my couch and buy into a few different breaks, fantastic, right? But it's that bucket of money. It's the same bucket of money you could spend to go out to a game and, not worry about it, enjoy your evening there. That's the money you should be putting into something like breaking. Yeah. If it's going beyond that, if the thrill of the chase, if the thrill of getting the big hit, if the thrill of trying to score that, that big card, if that is going beyond a reasonable entertainment expense, that's when I think it really does turn into a problem. There's a support group that's formed called Collectors MD. They contacted me.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they contacted me.
I put that in my notes.
Yeah.
I've not heard of them before, but I
had a call, two gentlemen who, one of them had kind of a personal story about how he was kind of getting overboard, with cards and everything like that, and realized he, had those tendencies and was getting overboard. They have formed right now it is just a support group. They have a weekly, I think it's like a Zoom call they do once a week. And they have some resources available just simply to help anybody who wants to be part of the calls, who thinks that their sports card, collecting / breaking / whatever it is going a little too far. And they're working to formalize the group even more. They're working to form a nonprofit association and to do more in terms of programming and resources. And I hope that the breaking platforms consider recommending these folks, supporting these folks, or doing something else similar, just to provide the outlet and the option. I'm all about personal responsibility, but I also feel like driving some awareness and making resources available to people is important. Yeah. And I hope that we don't see a lot more stories like this wife and that situation that she's in. I know there are other stories out there like that. It's not great. That goes beyond the fun, that goes beyond the entertainment. And really, at the end of the day, cards are supposed to all be about fun and entertainment. Speaking of entertainment, we rip Arena Club slab packs on this show every single week. I absolutely love it. I bought some of them personally. It's entertainment, and I make sure everyone in the audience is clear. This is entertainment, and we do this section on the show every week because this is entertaining. I enjoy doing this. I like opening up the packs. You can get some beautiful stuff. I'll give that back to you. This was your card from last week, Doug, that you got out 2 weeks ago. They got a slab pack. Yeah. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, dual signed. That's pretty sweet. Yeah. All right, let's rip one. Let's rip one. We'll start, Doug, with yours this week to see if you pull another beautiful card like that.
Yeah, I went football again.
Well, you're hot on football with that card.
Burrow?
Joe Burrow?
Second year Burrow.
Neon
10.
green.
Okay, in Spectra.
Number to
low number?
5?
Probably.
Number to 5, I think.
If it's
number to 5,
if
number
it's
to
numbered
8.
that low, then I'm pretty excited.
Oh, on the back?
Number
2, I can't read it.
20? Might be 20.
Okay. Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Nice number. Nice low numbered Burrow. Nothing crazy. Not as cool as the Montana Rice dual auto.
As long as it's low numbered, I'm happy.
But that's pretty cool. Okay, so that was an Emerald football pack. Teapot, you got an Emerald baseball this week?
I did basketball.
Oh, Emerald basketball. Well, with the playoffs.
Just got bounced. Rookie signatures,
Ja.
We'll
rookie
see what
signatures, though. That's cool. It's a Ja Morant rookie, PSA 9, rookie auto. Got a little disappointing season for Mr. Morant this year.
A little disappointing.
Yeah.
Maybe on pace for a disappointing career.
But might be, I don't know, might be a low off-season buy opportunity. Let's see what I got. I did, what did I do? I think I did football as well here. What did I do?
Speaking of Mr. Montana, a downtown's not too bad.
Yeah. That is not bad.
A downtown's not too bad.
That is highly liquid right there, as the young kids would say. Nice. Highly liquid card.
Hey.
2023 Optic Joe Montana Downtown
Go
PSA
Irish.
9. Very nice. Okay. And if you out there would like to participate in this entertainment as well and rip your own slab packs on Arena Club, make sure to use promo code SCI20 where you get 20% off your first slab pack purchase. Download the Arena Club app and use promo code SCI20. And also while you're there, check out their weekly auctions for all kinds of beautiful cards every single week on Arena Club. All right, guys, let's jump into our next story today. We got a new Pope.
We do.
We got a new Pope, Teapot. The Pope has some trading cards.
Yeah.
We've got Pope Leo the 14th. Topps Now came out with trading cards. Did not miss a minute. Like, those were out right away. Topps Now. I will be honest with you. I thought when I saw the card, I honest to God thought it was a Lamine James meme post. I really did. I saw a Topps Now Pope card, and I honest to God thought it was a meme post. I did not think it was real. And then I realized, wait a minute, this is on the Topps official account.
Yeah.
Is this right? There's going to be a trading card of the Pope? Is this correct? It's a Topps Now card? I literally like triple checked it. I'm like, this is actually Topps? It's not being spoofed? Well, apparently it's not being spoofed because 133,535 of this card were sold. Unbelievable. A super high print run. In fact, it is now that has set the new record for the most printed non-sports card in Topps Now program history. And somehow, I don't even know how, but somehow the print run on this is bigger than the print run of Walter Clayton Jr. and the Florida Gators cutting down the nets after the national championship. I don't understand why this is bigger than that, but it is 133,000, and because it went over 100,000, that means that there is a 1-of-1 superfractor of this card that is included in somebody's lucky shipment. Teapot, did you order any of these, and what do you think of the Topps Now Pope cards?
Maybe surprisingly, no, I did not.
Okay.
Personally, not a fan of this. I am Catholic, and this seems opportunistic.
Yep.
This just seems like it honestly kind of trivializes the papacy, commercializes it. This is it. Jesus was like cracking the whip in the temple about this type of stuff, and I don't particularly like it. The Pope's not a celebrity. He's not an athlete. He's not an actor or a movie character. He's a religious figurehead, and there's plenty of other Catholic sacramentals and other things that I also have in my home that are very important to me. Having a Topps Pope card isn't at the top of my list. Hobby and faith, very separate things for me, but so I don't know, maybe people disagree, but there are 1 billion plus Catholics in the world, so it doesn't surprise me that this card sold a lot of copies, but I have to also imagine a lot of people are trying to just capitalize by getting a Pope Superfractor and sending it to Golden or something. So
I was curious, like as a devout Catholic, if you and others would react in the direction of like, this is commercializing, as you said, on religion, or if it would be like, this is a cool way to honor the Pope.
I mean, on the one hand, you see like a newspaper headline or something like it. That's kind of news reporting. You know, I think I'm more traditional minded when it comes to that, so it just isn't.
Doing it for you.
It didn't feel great to me. The other people probably think it's cool, or maybe they're going to put it next to their Joe Montana card on their shelf at home. I'm not gonna like be condescending about it or whatever. It just didn't quite sit right with me, you know?
All right. So if you get the 1-of-1 Superfractor, he's not your buyer.
I'm not a buyer.
I'm not really going to be your buyer. Doug, are you the buyer on this card?
No. I'm gonna have a moment of transparency and vulnerability here. I don't even know what a Pope does. Completely honest, I have no clue.
Fair enough. I'll tell you later.
Yeah, so this isn't something that would appeal to me personally.
Yeah.
I had some similar thoughts. I imagined that, maybe a lot of people would take it the same way you did, very opportunistic, and not really representative of what that seat means. So, I didn't love it from that, and I felt the same way you did too. I thought it was a joke at first. I was like, they're not going to do this. That's not, we're not going to do that, right? Well, they did it. It's first American, right? It's
First
Bob
American.
from Chicago. He's a White Sox fan. He goes to sporting events. Maybe he has cards. It's not impossible.
He may.
One of us. I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe he's one of us.
Put the Superfractor in the Vatican Bank.
There you go. That'd be good. That'd be good. Hopefully they display it the same way that Dick's Sporting Goods is now displaying that Paul Skeens card. That would be something if you go to the Vatican and they got the Superfractor Topps Now. Because you can go to this Dick's Sporting Goods Collectors Clubhouse, which is part of their Ross Park House of Sport location in Pittsburgh. They were the buyers of the $1.1 million Paul Skeens card, and they just recently, this last week, unveiled the display for it. So if you walk into this House of Sport store, part of Dick's Sporting Goods, they got quite the display for this thing. They built kind of a real custom museum-like display with a baseball theme. You could go in, you could see the card. The card almost looks a little small.
You can barely see the card.
It looks a little small in this kind of big blown up display for the thing. That's the one problem, I guess, with displaying sports cards in that type of format. Like if you try to make a big production about the card and then you walk in and you realize how small the card is, the production makes the card look small, and I felt like that was kind of the case here. But it's interesting because at least in this House of Sports store, Dick's is building out an entire section they call the Collectors Clubhouse, which is kind of like a little mini hobby shop inside one of these locations with that card displayed. It will be interesting. They have said that Dick's Sporting Goods has said they plan to roll out the Collectors Clubhouse concept to additional House of Sports stores this spring. I think there's maybe about 30 or so, 20 or 30 of these House of Sports stores. They're specialty Dick's Sporting Goods. They're a little different. They're more of like a customer experience thing with batting cages and all this stuff. And there's a bunch of them, and I suspect there will be more in the future. And so if they're all getting these collectors clubhouses, and maybe at some point they're all getting their own premier card to go see, kind of interesting. Doug, when you heard this and you saw the display and everything, what was your first reaction?
Well, the first thing I saw was the display and not the card. It's really hard to see the card in that gigantic display. Yeah, I mean, the display in itself is cool, but the proper way to display a card is of that magnitude. It's like what we would see at the National,
exactly.
Like a small pedestal, a well-lit pedestal that you can kind of get close to, and there's no other distractions around it to take away from the card itself. This answered a question I had when we first talked about this. When we first found out about these collector spaces that they were going to do at the House of Sport, it crossed my mind, what is this going to be? Is it going to be more like a museum, like memorabilia, or will they actually sell cards? Will it be like a shop? It looks like it's a little bit of both. I saw a video walkthrough where it does look like they're going to sell a lot of wax
they
and
had sealed
supplies,
boxes.
Exactly, and memorabilia around the place. So it does look like it's an LCS for the most part. They got those. They don't have any in Georgia. I looked to see if we might get some. They've got a couple in Florida. So I'm sitting here thinking, looking at all these states, are they? The bar is set now, right? They had to go get a Skeens debut for this particular setup. Are they going to have to go get similar high-profile cards for every city and state that they have these shops in? And if you had a Cards HQ in Florida, and you had a similar display, what Florida-based card would you use?
Oh, I put one like in Gainesville?
Yeah,
It'd have to be one of my Tebows.
Yeah, I figured
it would definitely have to be one of my Tebows, one of my one-on-one Tebows or something of that nature.
Pretty terrible, yeah.
It'd be fantastic. See, maybe you could get ahead of this. Maybe you could scoop what Dick's is doing here.
Yeah, get out in front of it.
If you know
we know they're going to overpay.
Look at their map of stores. If they're like they got one in Miami, maybe you need to go buy the Tua NFL Shield before they can get the Tua NFL Shield, and then you can resell it to them.
Smart.
I think as they open them, they'll keep going. They'll go after like Max Clark's MLB debut patch when he gets called up or something along those lines. But yeah, I now have figured out how they're going to actually pay this card off because they're going to put one of those things that you use, like a telescope at the top of the Empire State Building, charge you 50 cents so you can see the card, and that's how they'll pay it off. It'll take a little time, but they're going to get there. That was the big thing I saw is you spent $1.1 million on the card. The display to me doesn't look like the right amount of money was spent to like put the emphasis on the card. I had the exact same note you did about contrast that with the National when we see a PSA 1052 Mantle sitting on display, and you can walk right up to it. There's got to be obviously security and ways to make sure that card doesn't get taken away. But it would have been nice to have the emphasis on it a little bit more. Overall, I like the concept of what they're doing in principle, just more collector experience and things along those lines. Be interesting to see which cards show up next. And I'd be a little concerned if I were like the high-end market for different cities, that if I knew one of these was coming, like, oh, crud, now I have like some big corporation bidding on a card that maybe I wanted to go after. We'll see.
Interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I think you're seeing, I'm very curious to see these collectors' clubhouses and kind of how they roll out across the country. I mean, I think for the most part, it's more access to trading cards in a big name featured retailer. I think that's probably good for the hobby overall. I think just the same way that GameStop has had a positive impact on the Pokemon and TCG market by offering grading and selling more and more Pokemon cards through GameStop. I think Dick's could have a positive impact on the sports card market if collector clubhouses become more common. So I think it's cool they're displaying a high-end card there. Yep. I'm not sure about the display, but I think the concept of it is neat, for sure. Okay, one more story I want to get into today, guys, before we wrap this show. PSA has brought back minimum grade submission. So this is something they used to have, and they went away at one point in time along the way. They are back again. So it was paused during the COVID-19 backlog. It continued to exist for crossover submissions, but not for submissions where you were submitting raw cards to be graded. Now it's back again as of last week for value plus service levels and above. Now, what this means is that when you submit your raw cards, you can specify a minimum grade. If it doesn't get to that minimum grade, they will just ship you your card back raw. Now, there is one caveat that people need to understand. They still charge you the full grading price. So it's not like you don't get charged. However, I will tell you personally, I find this service useful. I have done multiple PSA orders this year where I'll submit 20, 30, 50 cards. I'll have looked them all over and feel pretty good about them, and I'll get 10s and 9s and an occasional 8, and I'm fine with all of that. And then all of a sudden I'll get a 6, or all of a sudden I'll get a 4. Every single grading order I've done this year so far, I think 4 or 5 grading orders, in every single one of those orders, I've gotten one card back, at least one card, that had an incredibly low grade, where I just completely missed something, or they saw something that I just still can't see, and the card got a 4. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I would prefer that just be min graded, because what's happening now that the card comes back to me, I'm cracking the card out, I'm putting it into a magnetic holder, just because I have 4. I don't really want it at 4. I'll live with it if it's an 8, 9, or 10. Well, certainly, obviously, if it's a 10, I'll definitely live with it. But a 4, crack, so I'll use this. I think it's nice, but how big of a deal is it? I don't know. Teapot, your thoughts? Are you excited about this? Are you running the hills with excitement, or is this kind of like a meh for you?
I'm going to be totally honest. I never even realized this went away. I thought this still existed all this time.
That's
I
the
knew
first line I've got here.
I don't know who the Pope is and didn't know that this was gone. I mean, I think it's a good feature. Like you said, I would expect to be able to do this and put it on submissions and just not have to deal with that. I think it's good for pop counts to make sure that a card doesn't get graded, added to the pop registry, and then get cracked out and not reported and make it look like those numbers are inflated. And also knowing that PSA has increased the security of their slab now, and I've heard they're much more difficult to crack out than they used to be. Just, the sweat equity that's involved to crack something out and then go through the hoops to hopefully, do the right thing and say, hey, take this from your registry because I don't think you looked at this the right way, whatever. But overall, I don't have a lot else to say. Just good. I would expect this at all levels, personally.
Do you think you would use this service now that you know it's back, Doug?
So here's the thing about this. I agree that it's a good service, and I'm glad that it is in place. But it does kind of remind me of a little ethical area in the hobby that I'm seeing right now, which is right now raw cards are going for as much or more than PSA 9s in a lot of cases. So if people get PSA 9s, they're cracking them and they're selling them raw and they're not disclosing, I've already graded this and I got a 9. They're selling it, with the intent of making more money than when it was raw, and the person buying it is probably buying it hoping to sub it and get a 10. This kind of opens the door for the same mechanic, right? Like, put a min grade of 9 on there, so if you get any 8s, you can sell them raw and not tell the person that this card's definitely not getting a 9, it's not getting a 10, but I'm going to sell it to you anyway and not tell you about that. That's the thing that is going to happen. Like I said, it's already happening with people cracking the slabs and not disclosing what the grade was prior. So that's not great, but there's not really a way around that. The service is more beneficial than it is harmful in that regard. So I'm glad it exists. I probably would use this, but I don't want to be the guy that gets the min grade card back and then sells it without telling someone what happened. I would feel an obligation to let someone know. Like I would put a min grade of 9 on this and it didn't come back.
Yeah, will not gem.
Yeah. No, that's these are all fair points. I think it's a nice. Honestly, I think it's an environmentally friendly thing.
Sure.
Because it probably will stop, people from cracking slabs out and that kind of stuff. If you don't get the grade you want, then, don't worry about slabbing it for me. But you bring up an interesting point, Doug, around the ethics of, breaking a lower card out or getting a min grade on it at a lower grade. And then, do you have to disclose that? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let us know in the YouTube comments your thoughts on that topic as well as our other topics today. And don't forget those slab packs at Arena Club for entertainment purposes. Go to arenaclub.com or download the Arena Club app, promo code SCI20. gets you 20% off your first slab pack purchase. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you soon again with our next one. Take care.